I shall readily admit, good sir, I'm quite interested in your present and your future. But the thing I am most intrigued about is your past. Before we hop into this discussion on the wasted potential of Prime Meliodas, the leader of the 10 Commandments, please do me a favor and leave your own thoughts on the potential of Prime Meliodas in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit that little notification bell so you don't miss any videos that come up on the channel. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, I got the pencil here, and here we are to talk about the wasted potential of Prime Meliodas. Now here's the thing, I love Meliodas' character. I love Meliodas' character development, I love his character struggles, I love his character growth, I love his character interactions, I love a lot about Meliodas. I think his design is pretty great too. So honestly, I like everything about Meliodas, but the thing is, I feel like there's a huge blank spot in Meliodas' past, and it's not necessarily blank, it's just a bit patchy. And that section of past that I'm talking about is Prime Meliodas, or better known as Leader of the 10 Commandments Meliodas. But honestly, I'm not even that interested in that Meliodas because we know a decent bit about him. I'm more interested in the Meliodas that changed the love of Elizabeth. I'm more interested in the Meliodas who apparently cared about his brother. I'm more interested about the Meliodas who apparently loved fighting but turned into one who didn't. There's so many interesting things that, like, the thing about Prime Meliodas that makes me call him wasted potential is that he apparently goes through like multiple different character arcs just off screen. Like, we never really get to see it. Like, somehow the Meliodas that fought Mael, and the Meliodas that fought and played with Zeldris, and the Meliodas that fought against the Demon Clan, and the Meliodas that all happened to love Elizabeth, like all these Meliodases are like classified under the same one. The only difference is that like one has a commandment and the other doesn't. But I feel like that's so many different characters wrapped into one that, like, I feel like we're kind of missing a really interesting narrative that we just have. Like, we have hints, we have tastes of it. Like, we have the Prime Meliodas, or the personality, not necessarily the power of Prime Meliodas in the fight with Meliodas versus Escanor. That Meliodas is arrogant, he's cocky, he doesn't care about Escanor. He's more so focused on killing everything and keeping it moving. That's one version of Prime Meliodas. Then we have the Prime Meliodas we saw against Mael, who's silent, cold, heartless, and was literally just about to go slaughter Mael because he just felt like it. I don't know. He wasn't even there. No, he didn't even feel like it. That's the interesting thing. If you look at Meliodas in that side story chapter, you can see that Meliodas is pretty much completely indifferent. Sure, he looks down on Belian, but outside of that, none of that like high energy, having fun, enjoying battle Meliodas is there, which was the Meliodas that was there at the fight with Escanor. And supposedly these two Meliodases are both the leaders of the 10 Commandments. What happened that caused one to change the other? Which one came first? Which one came after? It seems like the more playful one is more memorized, at least according to Merlin, but I'm not exactly sure. That seems like two very interesting stories we just don't get to see. On top of that, we have the Meliodas who didn't care about goddess lives, so much to the point that he was just casually slaughtering all of them, to a Meliodas who, after fighting the strongest archangel, or maybe before, or maybe after, I don't know what happened. Like, there's Meliodas who apparently fought Elizabeth off screen, by the way. You know, two of our top tier characters, at least before like end of series characters, which like mop up every single Prime War character. But at the time of the war, essentially our two strongest characters that we had ever known of, aka Prime Elizabeth and Prime Meliodas, only inferiors to really their parents, they have a fight that we don't get to see. Why not? And another fight that I really wanted to see, Prime Mael versus Prime Meliodas. We know Mael runs, but we know Mael runs from almost everything he's not sure he can absolutely dominate, except for that one fight against that's the one thing I don't get. I feel like Nakaba messed up by having Mael fight against Demon King Meliodas at all, but that's another video on wasted potential for another time. But basically, there's so many fights in Prime Meliodas' past. Like, I would have loved to see Meliodas actually like toying around with Zeldris. Like, this sounds bad, but I would love to see Prime Meliodas basically Escanoring Zeldris, aka slapping him around just a little bit, because I can obviously tell that these two enjoy spending time with each other, at least based on how Zeldris views his older brother, how Meliodas is revealed to view his younger brother. So that's another thing that we don't get to see. Meliodas the caring person before he betrayed the Demon Clan. And also, I just want to see the love story develop between Meliodas and Elizabeth, because we're told they're in love, and we can buy that they're in love with the little bit of interactions we see and how much they're willing to do for each other, but we never actually get to see it form, especially from someone as little as we know from Prime Meliodas, who seemed to just be a combat madman. And I can only assume the reason Meliodas fell in love with Elizabeth is because she managed to put up a decent fight. Now, a lot of things that we don't know is who actually won that fight, because most we get about information on that fight is that Meliodas was caught off guard and she roughed him up a bit, or at least that's what he sounds like. He literally says, "You'll be put in a world of pain just like I was." But just as Elizabeth didn't instantly defeat the Demon King, I think she just may have off-guarded Meliodas because Meliodas would have no reason to take her seriously at first. And I think that's good. That's nice enough to infer. I would have loved to see the fight, because why not? Like, we get so many things in Seven Deadly Sins that like allude to a super interesting backstory for Meliodas. Like, I would honestly would have loved to see what the different changes that Meliodas went through, because Meliodas seems to go through such a major character development arc off screen in the past 3,000 years. Like, and I'm not even talking about like the 3,000 years leading up to the series, like even before that, like when he was in his prime versus out of his prime, such as when he gave up the commandment, or even before that. I would have loved to see, like, and this may sound wild, but like an entire manga centered around the time of the Holy War, or even the times before that, especially the times before that. Like, as much as I like Fortnite of the Apocalypse and all the new ways it's taking the characters, well, not really taking the characters, all the new characters is introduced in the new world and story we're getting in this old world with an old story. I think I honestly would have preferred and manga based around the time of over 3,000 years ago, because that seems to be such an interesting time period. And honestly, I know Nakaba already said there's no reason for Meliodas to get a side story since Seven Deadly Sins basically is his story, but honestly, I would have loved to see a Meliodas side story which just focused on him, like, growing up as the demon prince, growing up as the most wicked and powerful demon outside his father, growing up as the most dangerous being, growing up as the being that the goddess clan feared because he was so powerful, the one that made even the 4 archangels quake in his presence. Like, that is so much interesting material that sort of just gets left to the side. It's background dressing, but it's so interesting. Like, I'm not saying that this hypothetical story will be more interesting than the story we got in Seven Deadly Sins, but I feel like it would have been almost, if not just as interesting as the story we just got, because of the implications, because of the off-screen character arcs we know people go through. I would have loved to not just see Meliodas in the current time period struggling with the repercussions of his actions. I would have actually loved to see Meliodas growing up and understanding the repercussions of his actions, like legitimately seeing him rise up with this arrogance because he's so powerful, only to maybe be like disciplined by his father or something like that, to make him remind him that, hey yo, you may be the strongest and most wicked demon, but you gotta remember, that's after me, buddy, so I need you to listen. And that could have led into his battle with Mael. Like, the Escanor versus Assault Mode Meliodas fight would be the Meliodas that came early in the time of his leader of 10 commandments, early in the time, like even before possibly, where he's just big, powerful, and arrogant. Like, he's throwing his weight around and he doesn't really care about anything. He's just smacking people up. He has no indifference because he's that powerful. No one else can challenge him, and his dad never does. And then his dad finally comes down, smacks the hammer on him, and says, like, hey yo, I don't care what Chandler says, I know you're the top tier whatever, but you're still fodder. Now sit down and do my bidding. And that could lead to the more apathetic Meliodas that we see in the fight with Mael, who's just indifferent, who just wants people to get out of his way so he can do his job and get it over with. And then finally, someone who could bring some light back into his life would be Elizabeth. He fights her and actually enjoys the fight once again after years and years of being suppressed due to his father, and actually going in and enjoying a battle 1v1 with the goddess princess and just having a wonderful time in development. And they just fight. Honestly, I wouldn't have even minded if they had like a succession of battles. Like, at first, Meliodas was like, that was a good fight, but man, I kind of want to do it again. And like, they just go back and forth, and then that slowly leads into their like developing relationship, because they just happen to keep running into each other because they're two of the most powerful warriors from their respective clans. I would have loved to see that nice balance back and forth where like these two are growing to know each other better and better over time, and like through their fights and then through their conversations that happen after the fights, Meliodas begins to change. He begins to soften up, not to the same degree of like, no, actually more to a degree than what he was with Zeldris. Like, the Meliodas of the past would have just been like, I love you, Zell, but now I have to kick the snot out of you because I'm feeling a little bit bored and we can have some fun. To a Meliodas that's like, hey, Zell, I love you, man. Now be careful, I'll kick the snot out of you just like when we were younger. Like, that's the thing I want to see, because it feels like it'd be such an interesting story to see. Like, actually getting to see Prime Meliodas grow and develop as a character. Maybe not so much as a warrior, considering like, since birth apparently, he was just like, the cream of the crop, unstoppable madman monster. And I think it would be interesting seeing a character like Meliodas grow up with that and like constantly be reminded that, oh wait, yeah, like I'm a big fish in a small pond. Like, the moment I get to a river or the ocean. I'm kind of body bag, and not really, because there are only about a whole 2 beings above him. 3, but he didn't know about chaos. He knew about the supreme deity, and he knew about the demon king. That's all he knew about people above him. So really, I can't even blame Meliodas for being arrogant. But the thing is, I want to see it. I also want to see his interactions with the commandments, because like the commandments seem to have some respect for him, despite not liking him for what he did. Like, they seem to know Meliodas was their leader, and I would have loved to see like interactions with Prime Meliodas, maybe training the 10 commandments, maybe sparring with them, maybe fighting with them, maybe testing their strength and stuff like that. Because like, it seems like an interesting angle to go with, because of how integral his knowledge of the 10 commandments is 3,000 years later. He seems to know just about everything about them, and that's something even King points out. And it would have been cool to see him learning all about them, whether that be through observation, sparring, guiding, tutelage, stuff like that. Seeing Meliodas just grow up alongside his group, the people he's leading over the world he's destined to rule. Like, taking a look at Meliodas overseeing the demon world, and almost this is gonna sound like a twisted version of the Lion King scene where Mufasa takes Simba up to the top of Pride Rock. Is like, this is the land we rule over, and Meliodas just sees this large chaotic world of destruction and death and Endura and monsters and beasts, but he smiles or something like that. Like, this is like a world that he's native to. This is a world that he's born and raised in, so he's happy to rule over it one day. I would have loved to see all these possible implications of Prime Meliodas, but we get all of 0 of them. I mean, we get hints. That's the thing. The whole reason I have this little like story connect the dots to build off of is because Nakaba, like, he knows. I'm confident Nakaba has an entire backstory planned out for Prime Meliodas. He probably drew some sketches of it, gosh darn it, but he just will never tell us. Like, since Meliodas isn't the main character anymore, since we're in Fortnite the Apocalypse, since we have Big Papa Percival pulling up and running the scene now, I doubt we're ever going to get flashbacks to that era. But I'm confident, based on how well Nakaba knew, and Nakaba's fantastic at building characters. He has he has some issues with story consistency, but character consistency he's very, very good with. So honestly, I wouldn't be all too surprised if in one of the Q&As someone asked Nakaba, hey yo, do you have like a backstory planned out for Meliodas of 3,000 years past? Like, is there like a whole narrative there? And Nakaba just goes like, yeah, of course there is. I just didn't feel like it fit in the original 7 Deadly Sins. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I would have loved to see it though. That's the thing. Prime Meliodas is wasted potential because there's so much. This is gonna sound so dumb. Prime Meliodas is wasted potential because there's so much potential behind his story. Because the Meliodas of 3,000 years past is not the same Meliodas of 3,000 years present. Like, he's such an interesting character with so much roots and backstory behind him. Multiple character arcs hidden within the fold, hidden in the background of this character, all held under this title of Prime Meliodas, or Leader of the 10 Commandments Meliodas. Like, there's so much. Another thing I would have wanted to see, him meeting and becoming friends with Drone Gloxinia. Because, no offense to them, but they were fodder to him. Like, absolutely. And even if we go off like their Chandler scaling, a full power assault with Meliodas from the past would still mop them up. So I would have loved to see them becoming friends. Like, all of these different interactions, there's so much stuff, and like, we just don't get to see it. And I want to see it so badly. Like, I want to know I don't know why Meliodas was even in the area when Merlin was escaping, and why he even bothered to save her. Did he know about this girl, like, receiving the blood? I don't know. There's so many questions about Prime Meliodas, his motives, his character, his growth, all of that stuff that we just don't get to see because it's not relevant to the main narrative. But it is relevant to the main narrative because it's Meliodas and he's our main character. So I don't know. I'm so like torn, because I like Fortnite the Apocalypse for what it is right here and now. But at the same time, if Nakaba Sensei himself were to drop down from the skies and be like, hey yo, by the way, I'm canceling Fortnite the Apocalypse, what we're actually going to be doing is an entire manga based around the time of 3,000 years past, basically considered 7 Deadly Sins the prequel, I'd love it. Because, man, I want to see Meliodas versus Mael so I can know what time it was, so I can finally see why. Like, Mael's so hard to scale because we don't know when of any of his times were when he ducked. But, and I'm just going to be real with y'all right now. I'm just going to drop a whole ton of character interactions I really, really, really want to see. I want to see Chandler meeting Meliodas for the first time. I want to see Meliodas meeting Zeldris for the first time. I want to see Meliodas having a fun drinking contest with Gallon. I want to see those two sparring in the past. I want to see Meliodas just interacting with people. That's what I want to see. That's the good stuff. Like, that's the thing. I love story, but I'll say it now and I'll say it again. I love characters first and foremost, and I love character interactions. It's one of my favorite things behind storytelling. Like, stories can be good, but not have that interesting characters. I won't like them as much. But the reason I want to see Prime Meliodas so bad is so I can see him interact with multiple characters. I would love to see Meliodas just challenging his father out of nowhere, and that could be the initial discipline. I want to see more and more and more. I really just want to see more of Galland. Please give me more of Galland. My man got done so dirty. Come on now, Estarossa. But it's the kind of stuff I want to see. I honestly want to see. I'm not sure if he interacted with any of the Archangels outside of Mael, because I know they were scared of him after that point. But I would love to see Meliodas and Ludishel meeting for the first time. I would love to see Meliodas dealing with the Archangels for the first time. I want to see him. I actually want to see him invading the Goddess Realm. I want to know what that was like. Did he have to go through people to get to the portal, to get to the Goddess Realm? What was the dealio? What was the plan? What made him stop? Like, there's so many things I want to see. I really want to see where he got his drinking obsession from. I guess maybe it was just the depression. It was probably the depression, but I want to see more of it. Isn't that I want to see more of Meliodas' depression? But basically, I want to see more. And that's the main issue. That's why I call it wasted potential, because Meliodas had so much juicy stuff locked behind this era of his life that we just don't get to see. So many first meetings, so many interactions, so many combat scenarios. I want to see it all, but I doubt we're ever going to see it. But that may just be me. What do you guys think? What would you want to see? If you do want to see it, do you think I'm crazy for even wanting to see more Prime Meliodas? Do you think I'm crazy for wanting like a prequel manga based around that time period, centered around Meliodas or something like that? Or do you guys want to see that too? And if you do want to see this, what other things do you want to see? What do you want to add on top of all the things I already mentioned? And what else would really, really excite you to see in this time period if we ever were to see it? If this wasted potential were to ever be used? Please tell me in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little notification bell if you haven't already. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.